So, welcome everybody to the next episode of Higher Margins. My name is Brett Puffenbarger, your host, as always, and today I am joined by the one and only Lance Lambert, CMO of Grove Bags, and a guy I've had an interesting and mixed history with. We went back and forth for a little bit, didn't really get along. Finally took the opportunity one time to just do what I thought was the right thing, walk up and say, hey, what's going on? Let's have a real conversation. We did. We hit it off. Since then, we've been friends, colleagues. We've been traveling the circuit. Lance is a guy who needs no real introduction. If you've been to a cannabis event anywhere in the world, it seems like he has probably been there in the last 10 years. So, Lance, tell everybody a little bit about you before we get into our, normal question asking stuff. Talk about your company, talk about what you're doing. You said you're traveling right now, so hit it, man.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Brett. And great introduction. So yeah, just to your point, been in the industry for over a decade now, since late 2013, and currently am, as you mentioned, CMO and heading up international business development at Grove Bags. I've been here for just over 3 years. It's been phenomenal. We specialize in modified atmospheric packaging, makes growers like myself's lives easier as far as auto curing the flower and keeping it in a perfect state. As far as just background, grew up in Northern California. That's actually, to your point, where I'm right now. There's a 60th anniversary Dead & Co. show this weekend up here. So it's a bit of a migration, especially for those of us that grew up in NorCal for that. But yeah, I've been associated with the plant since I was a kid, popped my first seed. I want to say when I was 13, I was already into gardening. So when I was introduced to the plant, it was a no-brainer for me to find a seed in one of the bags and have at it. And definitely have been very respectful of it, and it's been a big part of my life ever since. So
I love that. I just got my hemp license, speaking of like growing. So I'm totally growing THCA plants in my greenhouse right now because, as everybody knows, I'm a huge fucking gardener. My wife and I have hundreds of edible plants, and like that's my thing. But this is my first time legally, fully growing a whole crop in my greenhouse. It's kind of exciting.
Nice. Congrats, man. It is fun. It's a labor of love. And it's not too different than I'm with you today. Tomatoes, mints, blackberry patch. I've got everything in my garden, but I enjoy it.
My current obsession is a plueri. We got a plueri, a plum cherry hybrid tree.
Oh, wow.
That is very fickle. So it lives between my plum trees and my cherry trees in the orchard. And I'm like, come on, which one? Like, what are you going to be? It's unique.
Yeah.
So my next one's going to be a plucot, a plum apricot hybrid, because that's where I'm at in life. Like,
here I sound like a norm. Like, all I've got as far as trees, all I'm running is Valencia, a couple of navel, and lemon tree. Like, that's it essentially for my
so
trees.
I have all those because I'm in Ag Zone 7, so I can't grow those outdoor, like that kind of stuff. I have to do all those in greenhouses. So I have those in like pots that I put in the greenhouse when the weed comes out, when it starts getting colder. But I am lucky to have like the more deciduous trees, so like apples, pears, cherries, peaches, plums, like those sort of things.
That's what I was going to say. Then again, you have more room than I do, obviously. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's true. And then my passion one, like my little thing, is pawpaws, like the big, ugly, weird fruit that very few people have ever heard of unless you've been fortunate to travel through like Appalachia. So I've got a bunch of varieties of those in like a little circle. So enough about gardening, man. Let's actually get into the questions. So
for sure.
The first question I've asked every single guest is one that kind of kicks off an interesting set of conversations. So you're a successful guy. You've made it a long way in this industry. It's a very tough industry to make it in. Everybody knows that. How much of your success do you think came from understanding people or people in the plant versus like process and business and all of those things?
That is an excellent question. One thing, and I guess to start, I'm a huge fan of mentoring. I've worked with a lot of great people in my career, got mentored when I was younger. And then as I evolved and matured and aged, I kind of became the mentor instead of the mentee. And one thing I always talk about is the 4 Ps. So the people, the product, process, the program. Those are things that are definitely imperative in any career, in any industry, any category. But to your point, one thing that I think has been very beneficial has been my comfort with people. I've always been a people person, people pleaser. I have a son he's even at age 14, he's like, Dad, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. I love music, but I very much love marketing because I see what you've done in your career. And so we went down this whole path of conversation about, things that you're passionate about, things you enjoy, and then things that pay the bills or things that you go to school for. And I said, you're very fortunate if you can align things you're passionate about with your profession. And for me, it has always been helping people. I mean, full disclosure, and this is something I've shared before, I studied criminal justice in school. The reason being was because to help people to understand the law better and to support people that need it in that space. My passion is more in anyone that follows me on IG. It's funny because everyone's joking around. But my passion, similar to my friend James Loud, who I'm catching up with up here in NorCal, it's cannabis, it's culinary, and it's cars. So I'm so fortunate because in my career, in a big picture, early on was in the automotive industry, third generation of an automotive family. So it was kind of a given for me to get into that, even at a young age, in high school. And then really the culinary has always been in the background, having a little seasoning business I started back in 2005. Probably most people in the industry don't know, but my close friends do. So I love cooking. I love, like we're talking about gardening, I love producing the product that I'm going to put in the pot. And then the last is the plant, and it really is something that, especially being a cancer survivor now, it's crazy going on 22 years. I really made a pivotal shift towards Eastern medicine, which was easy growing up in the Bay Area and having many Asian friends because there's a large Asian populace in the immediate metro of San Francisco. I had a lot of friends I grew up with that their parents taught me about more holistic and Eastern medicine versus Western medicine. So the plants played a role. And it's not the only one. And it sounds like you're in the same boat. I still are ginkgo biloba or echinacea or turmeric, ginger. There's a whole remedy that Mother Nature has out there that wasn't created in a petri dish. So I think it's extremely beneficial to be able to work with people. It's very important too to have an us and we versus I and me mentality. That's another thing I very much mentor to those I'm working with. This is a high tide rise kind of approach, and nothing against those that put a lot of focus on their own brand, on their own. I mean, good friends with Ed Rosenthal. I've known Jorge Cervantes for years. Frenchy Canoli before he passed. I very much applaud them for creating their own persona and their own brand and kind of being that identifier in this community. I've actually gone opposite. I try to not put too much emphasis on myself, put more emphasis on the solutions with the companies I work with, or just rising it up. And because we follow each other. And some of us are kind of more of just a kind of a get shit done kind of approach versus look at me, and that's one thing that I try to rather be doing pro bono, writing articles about international legalization, which is still my big shtick. Like I've been telling our friends here in the States, like, hey, it's not just the US. There's literally over 4 dozen countries around the world that have some legal program, and it's moving much faster than the US. But just doing things like that give back to the community, that support. And I know I'm going to totally sign. I'm in my late 40s, so I'm still in my 40s, but I want to be prepared and help prepare the next generation for this, because this fight is not stopped, man. Like you and I both have been in it long enough. It's crazy. I just saw in my feed, and I know you keep up on the news too, the Safe Banking Act. I literally, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember when I was on the board with Attach, the American Trade Association of Cannabis and Hemp, back in like 2018, lobbying for that out in DC. Like that wasn't just yesterday. That is literally several years ago, and it's still something that's being fought up on the Hill. So I want to make sure that the next generation that has that same approach and attitude to try to move things forward towards legalization and normalization, destigmatizing this plant. That's the kind of stuff that really excites me and still motivates me at the end of the day to continue doing what I'm doing and to be thankful I'm a part of this community.
It's really weird. You kind of spoke to it in the middle of all of that. This industry moves super fast and super slow. It's like shit is happening every day all over the place. It's almost too much for the average person to keep up with. But then there's other stuff that seems to move at like a glacial pace, something like safe banking or legalization. It's we live in such a backwards world when it comes to the speed with which, or the intensity with which things happen for us. And like, what am I, 9 years into this thing? And some days I feel like my first cannabis job was yesterday. Other days I feel like I don't even remember who that kid was that thought he was getting into this thing and like thought he was doing something bigger than I don't know. So let me
Yeah.
segue into the next one. Do you think cannabis, the industry, not like consumer side, but like the industry, attracts a certain profile of people, like a certain psychology, mentality, a certain breed of human, if you will, or is it just like all over the place?
It's, it's both. So it does attract individuals that have some sort of very personal association with this plant. And again, rather it be turning to it as a holistic remedy versus conventional medicine, or someone that's seen how it's affected loved ones in their life, or just people that, there's very much, I myself am an advocate. That's one thing I've always said is I lead with education. So I'm always with open hand, not closed fist, and nothing against the activists. We need those too. But I more so, being a people person, to go full circle, I more so like to educate people and help them understand. I don't want to force my ideologies or my thoughts or beliefs on them. And so I think there are individuals that come with that kind of pretense of, I'm here to support the plant, I'm here to support the movement. But one thing that we saw, and again, we've been in it long enough, we saw when Colorado came online, more so than California, back in the medical days. But when Colorado came online as the first adult use, and then Washington, and then Oregon, and it's domino effect from there, you did see it attracting some unique individuals. We saw these guys that came from .com, or they came from real estate, these hustlers that were just kind of trying to come in and get rich quick. They had this mentality or predisposition, like, I'm going to show these hippies a thing or two. They don't know about business, which little do they know, these are some of the smartest people in business I've ever worked with, because they're so bootstrapped and they're so guerrilla marketing approach, and they're so roll up your sleeves and get stuff done. So I think, a lot of those opportunity seekers, but they've cycled out too. We saw this big migration. It used to be, the beginning of every year where Jeff Sessions shooting something over the bow or something, but things would change like the first year. But something happened the summer of 2018 to where a lot of that funny money and a lot of those people that we're not so much a fan of started migrating out of the community. And I love seeing that, because again, and I'm totally sounding like a guy that grew up in NorCal with hippies, because I did, but like, that's not what it was all about, man. Like, it was about good vibes and about supporting and trusting in Mother Nature to have this remedy and this solution that make our lives better, not to come in and just for everyone to get rich quick, And it's interesting because the people who really are passionate are not the ones that are getting rich. Like, guys like you and I, like I said, that put our head down and aren't like, look at me, check me out, look at what I'm doing, look at the impact I'm making. No, it's like, we're putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and investing and making sure that this is going in the right direction. So it's been unique, but overall, I would say, especially in the international front, I still run into so many people that are doing it for the right reasons, that are just so passionate, so sincere. They're either caregivers or they're activists, or they're just all about freedom of the plant. Like, they have these different tracks or different areas of focus, but they're the people that you're like, I'm glad you're here. Like, I'm glad you're a part of this movement. I'm glad you're a part of this community.
Yeah, I've been helping a client recently with some of their international rollout plans. I think you've talked to them. I'm not going to dime them out or throw them out there right now because I don't want to give away their secret stuff. But it's been really interesting to get into the international community of it, because there's so much, at least from my view, and you've been there a lot more than I have. So correct me if I'm wrong, but there's so much of it that reminds me of the early days of cannabis here, where it's like very guerrilla, very like, we're going to do it whether we're supposed to or not. And then like, we're going to fight to be okay after. But there's also this other side of it that I've never seen before that gives me like Canada 2014 type vibes, where there's like this overlay of like big pharma and Curaleaf's approved vape device. And are they going to license it to the competition or are they not? And like, it's so weird. I guess where I'm going with that, and I'd love your take on it, it feels like there's two different European markets happening at once in a way that it never happened here in the States. Like, it's way more segregated than even like the D8 bro world versus the regulated weed world.
Yeah, it is. Europe is hot right now. Europe is a hot topic in general. To your point, it's something I've had a focus on since the teens. First with, Weed Maps, expanding our brand over there. and then to other brands along the way, but it has become increasingly hot. And you're right, we do see this. There's very much, to your point, more the root style, the culture, the ones who come from the traditional market, who put themselves out there on the line when it was risky, when there was still that potential of being arrested or prosecuted, persecuted for believing in the plant. One such individual, a friend of mine in Czech Republic, who put himself out there and fought the fight, and they did a documentary on it and everything, And then you have the other guys who, like you said, are kind of more the suits and kind of more the legitimate, and a bit of, not all, but Germany versus like somewhere like the Netherlands or Spain, where Germany, because of just how that culture and how that community is, it's very structured, over engineered, over analytical, everything's like T's and I's, all the rest of it. Whereas you go to the Netherlands, it's a little more personable, it's a little more respectful to where it came from and where the community was. So you do see these two different sides of it. But it is interesting because, to your point, there's this synergy. And I tell people it's universal, like food and music, no matter where you go in the world. Like, I love world beat. I'm more of like in a world beat, EDM, that kind of, anywhere I go in the world. It doesn't matter if, to your point, it's South America, Asia, Europe, back here, that music is really universal, but so is food, and then so is flour. And I really had that realization. I did a tour of Australia. I was invited down by Nathan White from Magical Butter at the time. And he is doing this tour from Brisbane down to Mardi Gras, which is an annual event, a protestival. It's been going on for over 25, almost 30 years now, I want to say. And they had their event in Nimbin, and then we finished it up down in Sydney. And that was the first time I really went that far for this plant and really saw the similarities. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like being back in NorCal. It literally felt like being in, Soham or in Eureka for one of our events out here. All the same people, just a different accent. I was floored, man. Drum circles and bong tossing competitions and live music and just all the interaction and engagement and the passion in the people. I was like, wow, this is crazy to be on the other side of the world and to get that same vibe and energy. So that's what I seek out. And those are the type of people, and subsequently those companies that are a part of those groups, that I love to align myself and associate with. I kind of stay a little clear of the Chads and Brads. Like, even the large companies we work with, it's surprising. One of the biggest companies in Holland that we work with, I'm so floored. Like, their head grower, he's originally from Spain. He's a Spaniard. He came out here and studied up on the hill in NorCal for a decade. And that's really where he mastered his craft. And now he's running one of the largest operations in the Netherlands. I love that, because that's not like your typical, you mentioned a few of them, LPs or large producers here in North America that are just very suitsy and very white collar and very, this is a commodity and everything has to fit the P&L perfectly. And here's our narrative. I don't know. It's just, you're right. It's that two different sides, and you see it everywhere.
Yeah. I'm glad I asked, because candidly, I feel like your social media is more like a travel blog than like a CMO of a cannabis company, like, or a cannabis adjacent companies. It's like, where in the world is Lance in Diego or whatever, San Diego. So let me bring us back a little bit full circle. You talked about being a mentor or mentorship as a thing. And I have a question on my list that I ask most guests. And I think it's pertinent for like the future generation that you mentioned, right? Because like, we're at a weird spot where like cannabis is still Schedule I, it's still federally illegal, it's still in a weird spot, but I can go get a bachelor's degree in cannabis business if I wanted to. Like, a full blown, no shit, here is your
from a legitimate school.
Yeah, right? Like a real school.
Nothing against Amsterdam.
Like,
love them.
No. Like,
from a legit school.
Against them. Like, love, the green flower stuff and putting the programs in place. Like, you can go through all the way up to like masters in cannabis science from the University of Maryland and your bachelor's of cannabis this from Lakes, right? Like, we're in such a weird spot, but the cat's out of the bag. There is future generations coming. It is likely now that like our kids' will never know a life of cannabis prohibition where it's a normal thing, right? Like, we're that next generation, or maybe the next one after that. But like, in our lifetime, there are going to be people who are born and live and like seek out a career in cannabis that they never have a real job, like a real job. Like, let me be clear. Everything we do is real. It sucks. It's hard. Like, we get paychecks and like have stresses like regular jobs, but they're never going to have a traditional industry job. So if you were starting from scratch today, no name, no contacts, no money, no idea, but you have all the knowledge you have, where would you start? What would you do first? How would you break into this industry, or would you pick a different one?
Would I do it all over again? Absolutely. I've worked hard and definitely earned these gray hairs, because you'll see the pictures of me from over a decade ago when I was a younger guy with more hair. Um, that's an excellent question, man, because I get approached by individuals that, to your point, and I'm just doing it. I'm just putting my head down and getting the job done. But I'm very humbled when individuals do reach out, whether it be via LinkedIn or IG, that are like, "Hey, I've been watching you for some time and seeing what you've been doing. I'm just really curious." And if you don't have time, I understand. It's so interesting. People make up excuses before they even get to the question. And another thing I say to my team: "Hey, the only dumb question is the one not asked." So when those people reach out, I do always make time for them. And I have had that conversation where it's like, "Hey, if I had to start over from scratch," it isn't too dissimilar from other industries. To your point, if you really want to get into the automotive industry, no matter if you want to be a designer, or if you want to be, a painter, or if you want to be a GSM of a dealership, you have to start somewhere. And a lot of people don't want to put in that time, energy, and effort to start somewhere. And I'm not saying it's generational. I know a lot of people pick on the millennial or the Z or the alpha generation for being lazy or entitled. Or entitled has been a thing for every generation since time. There's always someone that feels like they deserve something that they haven't earned. That being said, I would go to the front line. I tell people, like, go to the dispensary. I mean, my Legendary Organics, which is a local dispensary to me in SoCal, I love the team in there. I go in constantly education, having conversation, like, what's the latest, stuff that you're selling, and what do you like? What do you not like? But a lot of those guys, I'm like, y'all, like, there's opportunities beyond this. And what you're learning here about all these different products, about all these different SKUs, about all these different formats of the way to consume this plant will benefit you anywhere you want to go in this industry. And going back to the mentorship, we even do that internally when bringing on people, heading up marketing. I manage the customer service side of Grove Bags as well. And our customer service position has been a springboard. We've had the first individual is in that role, moved on to being a project specialist in our R&D department. The second person that was in that role moved on to being a business development guy on our sales team. The third person that's been in that role has gone on to become a project specialist in the marketing department. That's just an example of, once you're on the front line and you have those conversations, you have that interaction and engagement with the individuals that are obviously passionate about this plan as well, it opens up so many doors. So there may be some people are like, well, I'm not a people person, I don't feel comfortable. Go take speech class in your local junior college and get comfortable with talking to people. Learn how to not say Toastmasters is a phenomenal, man. What a classic, right? I mean, there are people that were extreme introverts that I worked with that were doing Toastmasters for lunch at one of my companies. And it was just so cool to see them come out of their shell. So you need to, in order to be successful, go past your level of comfort. I mean, even for me, and again, talking about where I grew up, where I come from, the plant was never really taboo to me, even when the DARE program was pushing on their BS to my generation. But having said that, even I had to, like, come to terms, go, okay, do I want to be out of the proverbial green closet? Like, am I comfortable with myself and what other people think of me? And I'm like, wait. And this was obviously, for me to segue into this industry is in my 30s. I was like, yeah, I don't really care what other people think. Like, I want to do what I care about, what I enjoy. And so that's when I made that decision. Like, if people have a problem with me, and this is even, I know you can relate, Brett, you probably have family and extended family too. I have extended family. It's like, oh, so you get to travel around the world and smoke weed? And I'm like, is that really what you think I do? It's just like,
I mean,
travel around
yes,
the world?
yeah, that's part of what I do, but like, there's a real job in the middle.
But there is a real job, because like you said, I mean, what people don't see with me, maybe they do, but I mean, I'm often working 10 or 12-hour days. I'm working weekends. I work half a dozen to a dozen weekends a year just on trade shows and expos alone. And to your point, it is a job, but when you're doing what you enjoy, and even more so when you're doing what you love, something you're passionate about, all of a sudden it doesn't feel as much like work. But that's what I say. And that's what I tell people. It's like, hey, start out on that front line, get to know the people, get to know the products, get to know the programs, the process. Obviously, opportunities are fruitful from there.
I think it's a great call out. I started in cannabis retail. I jumped from Harley Davidson into cannabis retail. The whole like,
Yeah,
hey, Harley makes more money selling t-shirts and leather jackets than they do motorcycles. So like a big part of my
sure.
job was running retail. I jumped into B2B, probably like you, because my mentality was, well, I can help more people. I can only help so many people if I
Yeah,
work for a retailer, even an MSO, because that was my first cannabis job because I didn't know any better. No shade on MSOs, but like I went straight into corporate cannabis and
yeah,
went, wait a minute, I'm going to help a couple thousand people at most. But if I help a B2B brand that helped hundreds of cannabis operators, now I'm somehow, at least in my mind, that was my logic, helping thousands of people. And I've never left
exactly.
that mentality of like, I think I still think like I work for a plant touching operator. And it's been, at least for me, one of the greatest assets to being a decent marketer in the B2B world because I know how to put myself, current client, True Terpenes is a really good example. Like I'm
Yeah,
selling stuff to people who I used to be, right? Like I'm marketing
exactly.
things to people who I used to be in their shoes. It makes it so much easier because I know how they're thinking. Like, I mean, you're in a very similar boat, right? Like you're probably talking to people whose personal time is spent the same way yours are. It's not, it's so cannabis marketing is one of those things anybody listening that doesn't really realize it. We probably have forgotten how to do things with all the tools. We have a very limited toolbox that we're allowed
Sure.
to use. It works every time. But when you're like you or I, Lance, it's I'm talking to my own people every day. So it makes it much
Yeah,
easier than like just they're a demographic on a sheet. Like, I got to hit these talking points because this like breakdown of their profile said so.
exactly. Yeah, and you touch on a good point there because it is so much easier to talk to people that are already passionate about the plant or already understand the plant or already have a relationship with the plant. Uh, on the flip side or inverse, I also have a joy in talking to people that don't, and I never typically provoke those conversations. It's really interesting. I'll be traveling this, you're talking about
Airport.
earlier, but yeah, I'll be at an airport. I'll be talking to, flight attendant, or I'll be talking to, maitre d' at a hotel or check-in or whatever. And people always ask, oh, where do you go? Business or pleasure? Oh, for work. Oh, what do you do? Or where are you going? Or what are you going for? And I'll keep it, oh, I'm going to an expo. What kind of expo? Tell them again, stranger. And it's crazy because if there's some sort of dynamic in a one-on-one conversation, it's so different than a group setting, to where
Mm,
people ask things and say things they normally wouldn't say in a good way, where they'll be like, you know what, one of my grandma's best friends passed away from opioids, and so she's looking at Eastern medicine. What do you? And we'll get into this whole tangent, but you can use this plant and actually take advantage of attributes that have nothing to do with the psychoactive experiential. So CBD, CBG, CBN to help with sleep. Like start educating them on it, and I almost enjoy that more because you can tell how much they appreciate it and how much they're like, I just need to understand. I didn't think it was a bad thing, and we know this by the stats, right? We know literally well over 3/4 of the population of the US are all good with legalizing this plant at a federal level. I
was it
mean, literally the numbers.
92% would vote
Yeah.
for it? Something like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been over 75% for the last 6 years. I mean, it's insane how far, but again, the blue hair is up on the hill, on your side of the country. We know how it is. It's politics. And, they've been politicizing the plant for a
Don't blame me
century,
for my
but
neighbors, man. Don't blame
I
me
know.
for my neighbors. I didn't pick
But
them.
it's still, I know, but these people, like, they're just so open-eyed and inspired, and that makes me happy. It makes me smile. Like that is the fun part of it too, is just really educating people, and again, erasing that stigmatization that no matter if it's the dare generation for us, the Nixon war on drugs for the boomers, the Anslinger war on drugs for the silent generation. Every generation has had like this plan is bad, okay, kind of
Yep.
mentality or kind of narrative. That's a joy to me, man. And so to your point, love speaking to people that speak our language, but even more so love speaking to people that are wanting to learn our language.
Yeah, I
So
love there is nothing better than the so what do you do in with your seatmate, like the single serving friend from Fight Club kind of conversation where like they're going to be more honest with you than they're probably with their own family about certain things
yeah,
because like there's no threat to you. You're going to be gone in an hour or 3 hours or whenever the plane
yeah,
lands. You're
yeah,
never going to see you again. Who gives a shit? it is one of those really interesting things where somebody will say, like, what do you do? And I always answer the same way, right? Like, I do sales and marketing for cannabis operators. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, I help weed companies do better, like, period. And they're like, what? And I'm like, okay, let me break it down. Like, I already explained it. I have like the most unique job in the world. There's like 10 people in the whole world who do what I do the way I do. And like,
Exactly.
then 4 hours later, you're talking about their, like you said, their cousin's grandmother's uncle's best friend who had this disease and treated it with this way and was sneakily growing pot in his basement in the 1950s and didn't want anybody to know. And it was a deacon at the church. And you're like, wow, okay. Like,
And that again, that's something that just really quick. There's a group, Andrew. He has a whole team, but Andrew always comes to mind. But there's a essentially a social club called Teesside, which is in Teesside, England, which is on the Channel side of the island, and that's a perfect example. This social club came to be because the chief of police found out that cannabis was the only solution to remedy his mom's ailments, and so this social club came about, and it was pretty much exempt from persecution because the head of law enforcement's like, nope,
right, yeah.
don't touch it. I mean, that's something like that is such an, and we're writing an article about it because, to your point, it's a small world as big as it is. Ran into these guys, I want to say in Barcelona, then we followed up and I was like, we got to tell your story. Like, this is the kind of thing that, to your point, has been happening around the world for years. Not just oh my gosh, Harborside, one of the first mainstream dispensaries here in Northern California. Like, that's great. That's just the story for here. There's stories like that in so many countries, in so many places, that has affected people that a lot of folks just don't know about. So to your point, it's pretty unique,
It's one for around here. So like, I don't talk about this very often, but I probably should. Like, I'm a born and raised Appalachian American. Like, my dad doesn't wear shoes to Lowe's. Like, I grew up in the sticks. Like, my grandfather went to prison for moonshine running. Like, straight up, like, I am a child of that, right? Like, real hillbillies. Got rid of the accent in the military because I got made fun of, but I can still get into it. I'm not going to do it here, but I still get into it.
But it's a whole different culture, man.
But like, my parents sound like the Beverly Hillbillies. Like, my whole family is like that. Like, even now, today, a lot of right beside the still was a drying room, right? Like, inside the cornfield, out in the middle of nowhere, every 10 acres of corn, you get an acre of weed in the middle and hope for the best so that you can't see it. And like, the local sheriff knew because there's only one of them. Like, that was my whole like upbringing. Like, I didn't know, this is a good one. I didn't know my family's connection to cannabis until I had been in the industry about 6 years. And I had like gone home. Like, I now live close to my parents. I now have moved back to Virginia and like live in Appalachia again and like have reconnected with those roots. But at the time I was living in Florida and I had been in the industry, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years probably at the time. Came home and my dad was like, you need to come in the basement, boy. And I'm like, all right. And he like brings out this jar of seeds from the 1970s. And he's like, these are all the seeds we got from the brick of this. And like, he had like the original power hitter from 1972 with the catalog cut out to order it. Like, I was like, what are we doing, man? Like, it was just one of those like mind-blowing things for me to realize. Like, so to your point, every culture everywhere has some connection to the plant. Like, here's another good one, Afghanistan, right? Like, weed grows like a weed there
on the side of the roads,
right? Just like, and people don't realize that. Or like, Morocco has some of the oldest patch making techniques in the world, or
and it still exists. I had a friend who came out. This is something I used to do with another company, would invite out, one of our top distributors to come out and join us at MJ Biz or Emerald Cup, kind of give them a choice. Do you want more of like more of the suits, more of the corporate experience? You want more of the community experience? And this friend of mine, he's coming out from South Africa. He knew that I dated one of my buddies in college was from South Africa. I dated his cousin. And so he knew I had ties to South Africa for years. He's like, is there anything I can bring you out? And I was like, well, you guys are kind of known for a couple of land races, specifically Swahili Gold and Durban Poison. And he's like, oh, I'll see what I can do. And he brought out the Durban Poison. And man, I'll have to show you the picture the next time we catch up.
Yeah.
literally the thing is like, it looks like an avocado tree, man. And it's crazy because that is one of those things that, it's just insane that he's like, this has never been crossbred. It's only been backbred. It's been in the family for years. Same with Hawaii. You go there in their cultivars that these families have been growing generation after generation after generation, it's just insane. So that's cool, man. And I can relate where you're from. Dude, I lived out there in Knoxville. And to your point, like a lot of people don't know, Tennessee specifically, they're one of the top 10 illicit producers for years of this plant. And everyone just thinks white lightning. They're like, oh, it's a bunch of hillbillies in the South. All they grow is corn for their white lightning, So
No, hell no. They grow weed, man. Like Roanoke College
Yep.
was about an hour and a half for me. They brought in Doc Ray, right? Like a legendary breeder for decades. Like he's teaching a class at a college
Yeah.
here in the hills of Appalachia on cannabis breeding. And like we're dipping out on the weekends to go knock on like hillbilly doors and say, hey, you got any strains we've never heard of? Come here, man. Like let us see.
Yeah.
Like people don't think about that anymore. I feel like we've lost that, like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like now we have to do like a TV show on it and pitch it to somebody. But like, I feel like a pheno hunting trip is worth it at this stage because so much of what's available in the commercial market is just hybridized stuff. It's purpose bred. It's all this crazy stuff. There are so many, I bet, isolated classics.
There is. And that,
like
Argon, the guys from Strain Hunters, man, they're getting ready to go on another tour. I just saw it drop. And to your point, it's crossed my mind. I love what they do. I love the approach. I know they're the originals, but to your point, as much as I've traveled, like I've thought about, like you're saying, doing it myself, but taking a different approach. Like, tell me how you can, like the true story, like the backstory and the following it back and all that, not just that, oh, we found this cultivar and we want to bring this into the mix and blah, 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 blah. Because I agree with you, man. Like it's just not, even out here, and again, I keep referencing it, but like even the popularity and the association with the plant as far as the Emerald Cup, man, and I know, and again, you've been around a decade in it, so you get it. Like you don't hear about the Emerald Triangle. You don't hear about the Emerald Triangle nearly as much as you used to. Like it used to be so top of mind, so top of discussion. Even when I travel international, people still know Humboldt. They'll reference Humboldt. A few people know Mendocino. Nobody knows Trinity County that makes the third county of the Triangle. But man, it's like, I think in many ways, like the things have kind of been watered down, to your point, because all of a sudden it is genetics coming from different parts of the world, or it's this big brand over here, that big brand over there. I think it has taken away some of that universal community of open doors and let's work together. And so I love it when guests speaking on, like Peter Severi, who does Future Cannabis Project, I'll jump on one of their home grow forums at least once a quarter. And you talk to these guys and it's nostalgic, man. It's literally like how it was decades ago. Just these guys, this is what I'm working on. I crossed it with this and he hooked me up with that. And but like, I love it because I'm like, wow, this is how I remember it. Like, this is the good old days right here. When people are handing you like fistful of bud to try out from their season, from their crop, it's changed. It's still good. It's just, you remember the heydays, so to speak,
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget. We met, I think it was the first time you and I met in person, was out in Eureka for CannaFest, like 3 or 4 years ago. I considered that like my pilgrimage to weed mecca. I'm like, I got to go out there. And I was like super fortunate. I got to spend time with Chris from like Redwood Roots and like a bunch of other people where they're like, let me show you my home. Like, and I had been to like Emerald Cup before, but that was at like, what was it? Santa Rosa and like the Flamingo,
Santa Rosa.
like close. But then like taking that next step up to like truly be in it was,
because and it is. And you were, like you said, that was like, so 3 years ago at CannaFest, and even that, it was still good, right? I mean, it's still like the Honeydew crew and the Willow Creek Side crew and Redwood Roots, and I think even Jason from Ridgeline and Johnny from Huckleberry. You get all the guys that are still doing it. They're still carrying on the tradition and the legacy that is the Emerald Triangle. But even that is like different than what it was like 5 years before, 10 years before that. But I really encourage people to make that migration. And I'm a judge at Headstash, so I'm doing CannaFest at the end of next month. It'll be back. I wish more people would make that migration, because you really are going into the heart of the trial. Like, Eureka, you've got Trinity to the east, you've got all of Humboldt. Mendocino's a little far away. They still come up for it. But like you're in the thick of it. Like you really see how much of an impact this plant has made on a community when you go to towns like Honeydew or Garberville, where you've seen how that town is not what it was even a decade ago because of mass legalization and huge operations like a few of the ones that won't be named that are up the street from me in Southern California, that are producing as much in one greenhouse as all of one county is up there. It's insane. And again, it's kind of shifting what the industry and what the community is today versus what it was yesterday, so it's pretty unique.
So I've got a couple of actual questions to get back on my list. We've totally just kind of derailed and went Joe Rogan style.
Easy for us to do.
So a couple of last ones. At this point in your career, are you personally more driven by curiosity, conviction, or control?
That's a really good question. I would say, the conviction. It's, again, I'm not saying I'm like going into midlife crisis or anything, but you get to a point in your life. And I think a lot of, they say that most women mature at age 27, most men mature at age 31, as far as finding themselves, their career path, their religion, their ideologies, their beliefs. And I agree with that. But I also think as you get further on to more of that half life, you kind of like, I'm in this for the right reasons. And it's nice to get a paycheck. Don't get me wrong. Like I like getting paid. It's good to make money. It's good to live comfortable, to be able to have my hot rods, my motorcycles, the things that I do enjoy, my other passions. But really to be able to say that I made a difference. And I even step back. There's people in this community that I'll have conversations with and we'll just stop and be like, isn't it crazy how much we've made an impact as far as being a part of this? Like, being able to say, hey, we helped with, making sure that the right things were in play when it came to legalization in this market, or that the right education was an element to this conversation at this table. Like, that's something that has been so pivotal for me. And again, it motivates me. I just literally did a LinkedIn post recently, I think it was last week, where I was like, it's the plant and the people. Like, that's what has me going. Is it cool to travel around the world? Yeah. I would have never fathomed being at a rooftop networking party for cannabis in Tel Aviv, Israel. That for me, like doing a 1,000-kilometer tour from Brisbane to Sydney in the name of the plant in Australia, or, being in downtown Santiago, Chile, for like all this stuff to me is still, it does not escape me. I'm super humble and super appreciative, but really the people that I interact with, the relationships I've built, it's like no other. And then just, again, the passion that all these people have towards this plant, that really is just, it constantly motivates me every day to like make that impact, to make that difference. And I'm thankful to be at the company, dude. That's another, I fired a company I work for. It's interesting. People talk about companies firing people. People fire companies, just like it's not always managers that fire people. It's people that fire managers. And you've done that in your career. Like, you're, dude, I'm done. I'm out. Like, I've done it. I was with a company. People are like, how could you, like, they had my last name as this company's name in their phone. That's how much I'd built up this brand. I'm like, their culture and core values didn't align with mine. And I'm at a point in my career to where that matters more than the coin, than the money. If I'm not happy what I'm doing, if I can't wholeheartedly believe in the product and the people that I represent in this community, and if they don't support what I do in this community, then I don't want to be a part of it. And that's why I'm so thankful that the CEO of Grove Bags, Jack, we have a great relationship. He's a grower. I'm a grower. He's passionate about the plant, passionate about the people. There's something about it. And he gives me my freedom to show my support and be passionate too. Because I recognize that I'm a unique, and both of us are unique individuals.
Yeah, you gotta.
We're outspoken. Again, we're advocates. We're not activists. We're not screaming. We're not protesting. But like, you get our personas with the position. You're a True Terps. They knew what they were hiring when they brought on Brett to True Terps.
Yeah, like, they were like, all right, this guy's gonna help us.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And they knew that your persona and your passion about the community and about the people, that's something that they actually were signing on to, not trying to suppress.
Client, I actually feel like every client that brings me on to do any kind of fractional stuff knows exactly what they're getting, right? Like, you're probably the same thing. They're like, well, all right, we're buying into this persona, this person, this human being, because we don't hide it. At least I don't. Like, I'm the same guy. Whether you're like, if I'm in a bad mood, I'm gonna let you know. If I'm in a good mood, if I'm feeling good, if I like him, if I don't like him, I live. My wife bought me a T-shirt a couple of months ago that said, "May the bridges I burn light my way." And I've always been in the back of my mind. I've added a little piece to it and serve as a beacon for the like-minded, because there's so many good and so many bad floating around this industry, this plant, this stuff, that like, I'm gonna do me, and the good people will find me, and we will make money, because good people make good products, deliver good service, and they make good on it. So my last question for you. Cannabis is a mission, right? It's a mission for all of us. It's that thing that keeps people in the industry. You don't make it a decade or more in the industry without that like passion and that mission and that like drive. Is there an off ramp to it, or is this a forever mission? Like, is it a thing that you're gonna do until the day it's done, even if it's no longer a career? Or is there one day where you're gonna like, hang up the hat and call it a day?
That's such a great question, because that's another thing that, it has been brewing a little bit just in my mind. Like you said, having over a decade, I'm going on 250 trade shows, expos, events I've done in this space. And again, I'm not at all complaining. It's from an experiential standpoint, I couldn't have dreamt this, and that's, I think, one of my mantras. I think I have it on, not that I'm on there anymore, but on Facebook, is like, I'm living a dream I could have never imagined. And I couldn't put it a better way. Like, this is like, younger people come up to me and they're like, "You do what? And you get paid for that?" I'm like, I know. I'm like, it's mind boggling. So it has crossed my mind, because I am respectful, like 50's around the corner. And I do love to travel. I'm a wanderluster, but there's also a lot that can be done here at home. I see that, when I come back to Northern California and see some of my friends that I grew up with that have been fighting the fight up on the hill and trying to grow and stand out as a cottage style growers, a micro grower, and are having the struggles and challenges. Like, part of my mind has been like, hey, maybe I need to go home, and all this stuff that I've done around the world and all these things I've learned, bring it back and support the core, where it all began. So that has definitely crossed my mind. I don't think I've ever thought about like stepping away from the community or the industry. That's something that came up after my first couple of years. Kind of an interesting story. I pulled a bit of a Jerry Maguire at a company, and I was like, well, I don't know, what am I going to do next? And it was so incredible. And again, this is something that just really opened my eyes. But within the first 24 to 48 hours of this word getting out that I left this company, I had, at the time, Matt Stang, who was pretty much running the show at High Times. He reached out and he's like, "I'd love for you to come work for me. Would you be willing to move to New York?"
So funny.
Like,
I have a call with him tonight. I've never met him before in my life. So,
oh my gosh, dude, Matt, oh man, like, Matt's one of those just old friends. He went the psilocybin, and now he's rumored to be coming back with the acquisition of High Times.
Yeah. So Javi, Javi Hassi, like
Javier Haas.
I've known him for years. We've been friends. I had reached out to him to congratulate him on the whole welcome to being the editor of High Times, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to talk to Matt? Like, we need some marketing stuff." I'm like, "Well, like, all right." Yeah. So it's so funny you bring that up. Like, literally a couple of hours from now, we're going to be talking. So people listening to this next week, hopefully you'll have seen other cool shit coming out of that. But for the real, whatever time travel moment, that's so funny you bring him up.
There you go. Yeah, you'll have fun catching up with him. So he had reached out. Andy Williams, who I highly respect, with Medicine Man out in Colorado, he reached out for me to come join the team. And then the third was Weed Maps, was the head of BD. I was already working on projects. They're a strategic partner. So because of the opportunity to come back to California, I ended up going with Weed Maps. So wished I got on with Andy Williams, but he's going through, I think, a 3 or 4 different company acquisition, M&A, and he wanted to wait and have the dust settle until he had the proper title and responsibilities for me. Well, we're still good friends, still keep up with him. That was the only time, man, because I had come from .com. So I was really fortunate to be a part of another evolution that was the evolution of this whole online and the web. And so I had a lot of friends who were still in that space, because I'd spent about a decade in digital media and marketing over there. And so when that community caught wind that I was moving on from this first position I had in cannabis, a lot of them are like, oh, hey, well, you come back, you think you'll go over here, you'll think you'll do SaaS, whatever. And then a few of them are like, hey, at least you're not too far along there to where you can kind of cover up that you were dabbling in the cannabis space. And I was like, fuck that. Like,
What?
I'm like, dude, and again, I was at the time, like early 30s, like mid 30s, maybe 34, 35. And I was like, okay, I would never do, like, the thought of me having to cover up that I worked in what is the fastest emerging market in the world, that is cannabis. If you're looking at things categorically, right? .com and real estate and automotive. Like, for me to like cover that up so a company would hire me, I'm like, no, I'm like, they're idiots. Like, if anything, a company, especially the companies I work with, which are typically, SMBs that are trying to scale up exponentially, if they were to fault me for being a part of this movement, I wouldn't want to work for them anyway. So I was like, no, I'm like, I would not hide or cover up that I've spent a couple of years in the cannabis space versus focused solely on digital media. And so that was the only time that was even brought to my attention. At that point, I was like, nope, I don't think I'm ever going to, even if I did settle down, maybe if I semi-retire and spend more time on the seasoning business and start building cafe bikes again or whatever, I would still be tethered to this community and still be doing, to your point, partial work or independent contractor work to help, the community and to help companies. So I'm in it for the long haul. What it looks like the next decade, again, I love where this company has gone. We've been really successful, especially on the international side, because that's where the greatest opportunity is. Heck, you saw Germany online last year. We've got the Czech Republic that's going fully online to adult use for med in January of 26. Switzerland's moving along. Even Ireland and France, surprisingly, are getting on the right page. There's so much movement and there's so much more work that has to be done, that no matter what level I'm involved, I'm excited to still be a part of it for years to come. So I'm not going anywhere in that regard.
I think a lot of people will be happy to hear that. So that's it, man. That's all I got. I know you got a fire drill coming up. You're going to get kicked out here in a minute. So don't want a literal fire drill for those listeners.
I know, it's crazy. I saw the note. I'm like, can we move this up? So thank you, Brett, for moving it up. I was like, last thing I wanted was a bloop bloop at the hotel going off here. I'm not even lighting one up, so I know they couldn't blame me for it. But
yeah, man, that's it. That's all I've got. Thank you for being a gracious guest. Sorry we didn't get to all my questions, but I feel like we still had a really enlightening conversation. We always do every time we chat. So any last thoughts you want to throw out there before we call this bad boy a day?
Yeah, no, I just say, man, you brought it up, but there's opportunity for everybody in this industry, and be a part of the community. There's people that I've met, especially guys that reached out on LinkedIn, like a guy who had high level security all the way to the Pentagon. And, I love the plant. I'm very supportive of it, but I haven't been able to be associated with it because of my career path. I'm like, dude, don't let that stop you. You've been in logistics and security. We need those people that reach out to me. They're like, oh, I'm an Uber driver. How would I get into? I'm like, logistics,
delivery, dog.
Transport the product. I'm like,
yeah,
you can name any. I'm a scientist, I'm a doctor, I'm a marketer, I'm a sales guy, I'm an accountant. I've never worked in a category that has so much opportunity by diversity of experience. So people think that they have to have experience on how they grow the plant or how they process the plant. No, you need to have an experience in fill in the blank, and you need to be passionate. And so that's just one thing I always leave on a last note, is like, there's opportunity for everybody and we're continuing to grow. So I look forward to a part 2, man. Sounds like you have more questions, and we do always have great conversations. So
yeah, I'm sure I'll end up doing part 2s with a lot of people. Never feel like this is enough time, but I feel like I don't want to go the like Joe Rogan fucking 3-hour episode out, because like, who has time for that, right? Like, we have other stuff to do. Yeah. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to put this out there and for the world to see it.
Definitely. Awesome. Thanks, man. If you need anything else, just let me know. I'm around.